Making an impact across the North. Over £220 million invested in more than 770 companies to date, creating over 2,800 highly skilled jobs, with a third of jobs in the top quartile for income. Working collaboratively with our fund managers and the 10 local enterprise partnerships, we provide microfinance, debt finance and equity finance. We're proud that 75% of investments have been made outside of the 4 major cities, and we're making an impact across the North's key sectors, backing over 770 ambitious management teams.
Growth to date has been significant, and we believe that at some point in the next 2 or 3 years we will reach a trigger point, and at that point we expect the growth to be fairly explosive.
If you're thinking about expansion, go and talk to NPIF now. So you can get good advice, not only on maybe how to expand your business, but also the type of financing that's going to be a good idea.
The biggest impact it's made for me personally and professionally is I've had the extra bit of capital to engage an operations manager, which is giving me the chance to do what I do best, which is go out and sell sales bond and help businesses grow.
The biggest impact the funding will have on the business is that transformation from a development stage company through to a medical device company with products on the market. That's an easy thing to say, but miles apart in terms of the development pathway, and a huge step forward for the business.
We are committed to making an impact through good times and bad, and have been impressed by the rapid response from fund managers and portfolio companies in the fight against COVID-19. By continuing to work collaboratively, we will get through this together, boosting regional prosperity and driving the local economy. See how our £500 million fund can help today.
Good morning and welcome everybody to the latest webinar from thebusinessdesk.com in partnership with the Northern Powerhouse Investment Fund. I'm delighted to be hosting today's event, looking at innovation, something that goes right to the core of the Northern Powerhouse. Our towns and our cities once transformed the globe and industry with the first industrial revolution, and are doing so again, and helping the UK and the world recover from the current pandemic. I'm pleased to be joined by an expert panel today who, over the next 45 minutes, are going to discuss innovation in the North, the challenges that they may have faced and the solutions they've found to those, as well as sharing examples of how actually the disruption that's been caused over the last 12 months may give us opportunities to both level up the economy and also support further growth. So before I introduce the panels, or the panel, I would just like to point you out that if you have any questions, we will put those to the panel throughout. Please use the question and answer or the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. So without further ado, I will quickly introduce everyone and ask them a simple question to get things going. So the Northern Powerhouse, obviously, as we've said, has this history of innovation. Chris, would you be able to introduce yourself and share why you think the region has this heritage?
Sure, no problem. So good morning, everybody. I'm Chris Yates. I'm the CEO of Abingdon Health. We're a York-based business. We're a lateral flow developer and manufacturer of tests. We have manufacturing sites both in York and also in Doncaster, which we acquired last year. And we were fortunate to have received funding from the Northern Powerhouse Investment Fund in January 2019, and also in the middle of last year as well. In terms of innovation in the North, I think there is, I guess, there's clearly a heritage of innovation in the North going back all the way, as you say, to the Industrial Revolution. But if I think about what the kind of key building blocks for innovation are, I think they're all very present in the North. So we have world-class universities and research. I think certainly from my perspective, having a manufacturing base in the North and those skills and experience is extremely important as well. And also we have a pool of entrepreneurial talent, within the North. So I think we have the building blocks for innovation, within the Northern Powerhouse region, to enable that to happen. So, I'm very proud that despite our name being Abingdon, which is a town south of Oxford, we are very proud Northern business. We're extremely proud to have raised money through the Northern Powerhouse Investment Fund That was something that I know all of our employees were extremely proud of. So we've got a lot to be thankful for. Living and working in the North, it's a fantastic place to live. It's a fantastic place to bring your kids up, and I think all of those things are key building blocks for innovation.
Thanks, Chris. I'm sure Doncaster would happily let you take its name for Doncaster Health if you so choose. Saying that as a resident, Natalie, same question to you. Oh, right. We might come back to Natalie because we seem to have frozen. So, Grant, obviously, could you introduce yourself and provide your opinion on why the North is home to such great innovative companies?
So my name's Grant Peggy. I head up the Northern Powerhouse Investment Fund team. We're based in Sheffield in South Yorkshire, which is very grey and wet this morning. And I've been working on the fund with a number of partners for 4 years now. And what I have seen is the North has always been known for innovation. It's been known for its entrepreneurialism as well. And what we're seeing now is that coming together, building on perhaps some of the sectors that went before, but also new exciting sectors as well. And I think the thing that's really pleasing to see is it's not just one part of the North. We know that Manchester's doing particularly well in digital tech, but we know Liverpool's doing well in life sciences and med tech, but it's spread throughout the North. Leeds has got a great innovation centre. And the thing that I'm seeing in terms of looking at the fund is that spread of innovation across the North, partially based on our universities, our science base, our accelerators, but also I think it's very much down to the business community as well, who are dynamic and looking forward. So it's great for us that there are so many innovative and growing businesses that we can invest in and support.
Fantastic. Natalie, I think we've got you back. So
You'd
like to introduce yourself and explain why you think the North is such a great place for companies to innovate.
My name is Dr. Natalie Kenney. I'm the CEO of the BioGrad Group. We have our headquarters at the moment in Liverpool Science Park, and we've been here for 6 years. The company originally started in North London, and we expected to actually expand in North London. We moved to the North through an informal support structure. So Liverpool Science Park, the Knowledge Quarter, had a lot of funding from MPIF, and what we found is when I moved here, we were allowed 6 months free lab space. So it was a very informal arrangement. It wasn't something that was measured. And since moving in here, we have expanded beyond any of our original plans. We expanded in the North quicker than the South. I can't tell you why. In 2019, we started off as a laboratory training provider for elite scientists throughout the world. And we ended up doing medical training. Now we do a lot with COVID. And we have a diagnostics arm to the business, and we have pharma research as well. But we started off doing scientific training. And in 2019, we attracted scientists from 520 institutions in 21 countries to Liverpool. So we don't go away and travel. These are people actually coming into the North. And for us, this is this wonderful success story. But it started from an informal support of somebody allowing us to trial our business here for 6 months. And within 5 years, we've got a projected income now of about £42 million a year. So for me, what I found in the North, and my career didn't start in the North, I'm from the North, but I left as soon as I graduated university. And actually, I looked for a career in the South because that's where the jobs were. This wonderful sort of coming home to the North and actually seeing the science and the opportunities that are available in the North is really amazing. The universities, the world-class universities, we've got the talent, we've got the staff that we need to find here. We've definitely got the infrastructure, but there's definitely for me a different culture. There's a wide diversity, and I think some of that comes from the way that funding has been managed. This sort of grassroots funding, supporting entrepreneurs, supporting small micro-scale businesses that cover this massive range of different sectors. So for me, it's the social mobility and the diversity that is given our economy at the moment gives us a diversity of ideas, which then results in a diversity in the area of science. So for me, I'm really enjoying being in the North, and we do expand occasionally, and we will be expanding to London, but we'll be keeping our headquarters in the North.
That's the bit we always like to hear, keeping the headquarters in the north.
Yeah.
On to you, Jo.
Morning, everyone. I'm Jo Whitfield. I'm Fund Director at FW Capital. We're a fund management firm and we specialise in SME investment, and we manage a number of different funds in the north of England, including £143 million worth of the MPIF fund. We provide debt finance in association with British Business Bank. And since we first opened our first office in Newcastle, which is when I joined back in 2010, we've now developed, we've got 6 offices around the north of England. We're covering the patch, and we've got 185 million invested in SMEs in that last 10 years in the north of England. So I'm really proud of that. So why do I think the north has got a history of innovation? I mean, obviously people have said it before, it's embedded in our heritage. We've got an awful lot to be proud of. I think when I think about the Northeast in particular, our roots were leading the way in heavy industries such as mining, shipbuilding, steel. We're proud of many engineering firsts. Not so proud of the football team, but never mind, can't have it all. Many of those industries have closed, but some are very much alive. And I think of how manufacturing and engineering is still going strong. And we support a lot of businesses in that sector. But I think really the North has got a really strong track record in adapting to change. We've developed new sector clusters, as been mentioned. We've got some cracking universities here. And the new clusters that we're developing have got innovation in their heart, things like digital, renewables, life sciences, advanced manufacturing, to name a few. And I think really innovation has been really critical to keep the Northern economy going. We've had to do it. We're a really creative bunch. We've had to find new ways to trade. And it's so good to see some of the new opportunities coming through and career paths for younger people in some of the businesses we're supporting today. So I'm really proud of that.
That's fantastic. And I guess lastly to you, Roger, your view on why the region has been this hotbed of innovation.
Well, good morning, everybody. And I guess the 4 relevant rules to this conversation are not only being chair of the Leeds City Region LEP, but the board of the 11 across the north, as well as a huge privilege to be chair of the NPIF Strategic Oversight Board to ensure that the sort of things that have just been touched on continue to happen, and particularly in NPIF 2, as I now have a desire, because we've proven it works in NPIF 1, but we now need to scale up or level up or whatever, but just have more money, really, please. And the final one is as a member of council of the University of Leeds. A bit like Natalie, I came south 1,000 decades ago to university. I've not gone any further, although having worked in London and around the world. I'm struck by a number of the points that colleagues have made already, but I want to start with one thing. I would like the northern business community to have a common definition for innovation. And I've struggled with it. You might say, well, you maybe it's a bit thick, aren't you, Roger? Well, I am an applied scientist before I became an accountant, so I think I've got a bit of brain power. And I had to go all the way to Boston, Massachusetts, to find the best definition of innovation I've seen anywhere in the world in 3 letters. And it's not MIT, or 3 words, I should say. Invention with commercialization. In other words, turning ideas that cost money into making money. I think that's quite a useful way of encapsulating it. And I'm struck by things that Chris said about, we have all or most of the ingredients to be really successful, but there are some missing bits, and we may come on to that in the conversation. I'm struck by what Natalie said about we generate talent like it's going out of fashion, but it's about opportunities for that talent to stay and work, or as she has done, boomerang back to the north to be part of the economy. And it's about making sure that the recipe we're wanting to cook up with the support of NPIF and others is to max out that economic and social impact. And I think for me, that there's a narrative around, and I hope we've changed as a community, that it's not about what everywhere else has had, but it's actually what we offer. That means we don't need any favoritism. We just want fairness. And when we come to looking at in the relatively recent Nestor report, the differentiated investment between the taxpayer in places outside of the north as compared to the north, it's quite interesting that maybe there needs to be a change in that allocation. Nothing wrong with the Ox-Cambridge arc, but if you keep investing in that success, it'll continue to be hopefully a virtuous circle of success for them, but a vicious circle for everywhere else, and particularly in the north. And as Chris has said, and we're all proud Northerners, and we've got to remember which bits of this country put the great in Great Britain, and the north did that hundreds of years ago. And the underinvestment in the last 3 decades is part of the challenge that we need to address. So for me, I'm on song with you all, but also I think importantly to encourage Indigenous SMEs to think that innovation isn't for somebody else, it's for them too, and how to help them and assist them with what probably seems like a really risky business decision. But the riskier business decision is not to keep developing your business, because eventually, like some bits of the high street that are still in the analog age, digital has taken over and they've gone. So I think this is a great opportunity for the north to truly collaborate on a common vision of the north being part of the UK's economic renaissance, both post-COVID and Brexit.
Thank you very much, Roger. You've hinted at something there that there are challenges to the idea of innovating it in the north, and one of that being funding. I guess Chris and Natalie, you've both taken businesses and that have needed to innovate, and that has driven their growth. What are the challenges that you've both faced, perhaps, and how have you met those? Chris first.
Yeah, no worries. So I think in terms of funding, I think London is clearly a global financial centre, and a lot of VCs are based in London. But I think that said, I don't see that as a major challenge, for us. Most VCs and private equity firms are tapped into local networks, accountants and lawyers. So I would definitely urge people to speak to their accountants and lawyers, because they are a great way of finding the right sources of funding. I think things like the Northern Powerhouse Investment Fund have significantly helped. Clearly on a personal basis, it's significantly helped our business forward. Just to maybe pick up on one of Roger's points around the sort of golden triangle and some of the funding, maybe central funding such as Innovate UK. I think historically, that has probably been weighted towards the south, but I do think that's also changing as well. And certainly we've won a number of, I think it's 3 Innovate UK awards now. So I think there is a recognition that there is a need to kind of make that funding available to not just companies within the Golden Triangle. And I think the Northern Powerhouse has a role to play in terms of my industry, in terms of kind of promoting the north with regard to funding. Bodies like BIVDA, which is our trade body, and bodies like Medilink, which we're a member of, I think also have a key role to play in promoting the north and ensuring that the right allocation of funding is made available to innovative companies in our region.
Fantastic. Natalie, same sort of question.
Yeah, so on that, it would be really easy to just sort of list a list of challenges to innovating in the north and assume that they are specific to the north. And I think sometimes maybe we moan about it, maybe we think, it's because we're in the north, but actually, when you think about it, all the problems that we face in the north are exactly the same problems that you face in the Golden Triangle, in London, in Oxford, in Cambridge. It is a lack of funding. I think for us, maybe it's a lack of low risk opportunities for entrepreneurs. Like Roger had said, that sometimes we have really great innovators, homegrown innovators, that just don't necessarily know that there is the capacity there to commercialize. And I would probably say that I was probably one of those in my early career, and like I said, an opportunity arose in the north, and it was wonderful, and it made big changes. But I think it's going to be the same issues. It's competition, it's space, but we're seeing a massive difference. Just driving around the north, there are innovation centres popping up everywhere. There are innovation centres that will support startups. And I've seen it over the last 10 years. So we have the small startups popping up, and it might look like maybe, they're moving maybe out of the central city regions. So we maybe don't count that as a success, but they're moving out because they're buying their own facilities. They've got millions of pounds of government funding coming in, and maybe we lose that story somehow. So I think, yeah, there are definitely challenges, but I think some of the challenges are those that we maybe make for ourselves by using our measure of success as to what is dictated by the rest of the country. Is our success by the direct income back into our economy? Well, maybe the money isn't coming back into our economy. Maybe we can be this amazing powerhouse for startups, for innovations, but those innovations don't necessarily need to stay in the North or even in the UK. We work in a global economy now. We have a lot of money coming in from abroad. About 25% of our funding comes in from abroad, which is amazing. And I'd say about 50% of it comes from the South. It comes into Liverpool, but that's where it comes from. And I think I just want to touch on something that Roger said, in that, it's right now, it's not about what everybody else has. We're at this great opportunity now where we don't need to start mirroring the South. Yes, there are issues with the South. Maybe what we need to start doing is start creating our own platform. The Northern Powerhouse, like we say, MPIF1 has been going for a while. Maybe in MPIF2, maybe we need to take the successes that we've had from MPIF1, and these are these small scale startups, these entrepreneurs that we're mobilizing. We've got these great success stories. Maybe we need to start now looking at how do we measure our success? And actually, that is our success. The success is these small stories, these informal collaborations. Yes, I think there's definitely a need for formal funding routes, but there is a lot more that we have to offer. And I would like to see us not limiting ourselves by what the Golden Triangle has done. I would like to see us setting a new platform for success.
Yeah, Natalie, if I can just maybe pick up on that point, and also the point that Roger made. I think if we twist it around to opportunities actually rather than challenges, I think one of the key things we do have, and certainly, picking up on Roger's point about innovation, I think a lot of innovation now is going to be driven by integration and that net effect. And certainly, just to give an example from our business, we are a lateral flow test developer manufacturer, but there is a digital aspect to what we do. So we work with local digital companies in Leeds and York. There's also the need for us to get equipment, that makes our tests. And we work with businesses in, Sheffield, in that area as well, that, there's a long tradition of medical device manufacturing in that region. So I think that network effect is a real opportunity for us as a region.
Yeah, I agree completely. So when we did very well with COVID. So in December, when the government released their list of COVID approved test centres, we were at the time the only approved test centre in the Northwest, which was amazing. And we have clinics that we partner with now throughout. So basically everything from Birmingham up to Scotland. We have, I couldn't even tell you how many clinics, maybe 80 something, that we do the testing for. And it is that collaboration of keeping that business in the North, allowing the airports to run, allowing people to conduct business travel abroad when travel starts up again, keeping the travel industry. It's something that's really important in Liverpool. And it's supporting our local businesses. And like you say, it's not just those direct effects that our customers get, but as we get bigger, we are buying our supplies, our tips from the lab. It's something that we get through like crazy. Tips, our clinical waste manufacturing, our cleaning, our staff, our biomedical scientists, they are all homegrown. They're all from the North. So what we're seeing is as we are getting busier and we are collaborating actually on lateral flow devices, but again, they are with companies that were based in the same tenant community that have since expanded and gone and done their own work. So yeah, I agree. There's a lot of room for collaboration in the North. And I personally find it very easy to collaborate with Northern companies. It's this idea that we're helping each other and that we're all in this together, but in the North.
No, so
if I could come in, Ben,
yes,
it's really reassuring to hear from both Chris and Natalie that yes, we can, and yes, we will, and yes, we have approach, because I think that's really important. The notion that the North's part of a national solution, rather than, as we often portray ourselves as something of a problem or a difficulty, them lot up north. We've got to get beyond that. It's so very important, and it's important because of the sheer imbalance between the performance of the economy of the North and the underperformance, whether it's productivity or otherwise, conservatively pre-COVID, is being supported to the tune of £1 billion a week by the success elsewhere. And elsewhere has some of the social problems that we have, perhaps not as high, but there are pockets where it's maybe even higher. So that underperformance is actually a drag factor on the whole economy. So actually, as proud people, we want to do something about that, so that billion a week pre-COVID, which is a damn sight more now, becomes something in the other direction. And that's why the levelling up agenda, it's not levelling up everywhere. It's levelling up where you really can enable that balance to take place. And it's something I think the people we elect sometimes struggle with. Everywhere's got to be somehow treated the same. Actually, not everywhere's got the same problem as well as the same opportunity. And it is about that fairness rather than the favouritism. So it's really great to hear people like Chris and Natalie talking that way, because it gives me further oxygen to this agenda. But there's an important point about also, we've sort of done things separately. On the one hand, we've thought of place, and then we've thought of topic. And I'd like to think about it like a piece of cloth. You know, there's a warp and a weft, and the two go together, whichever way around it is, to our collaboration, as well as healthy competition. Because, you know, people want to make money, want to grow their businesses, but it's about getting the correct cocktail rather than just a bit of one and a bit of the other. It's healthy competition and not all meaningful collaboration. Sorry for the slightly, I didn't mean to preach, but I think it's really important that for those listening, that actually it's not about hope, it's about actually intention and opportunity. And for others, you know, policymakers, some of whom are still in the south, but hopefully very soon they'll be coming and working and living up north with us, that actually there's a huge prize here, and it's a national prize.
No, that's fantastic. I guess, well, this leads nicely on to sort of another question that I had for Natalie and Chris. Obviously, Natalie, you talked about the fact that you were one of the only test centres in the Northwest. So you've been successful coming out of this massive disruption to the economy in terms of COVID. You know, what's the next steps? What are your future thoughts on that? Obviously, you know, we're hopefully, touch wood, we're all moving to a post-COVID world eventually.
What I will say is, when we're talking about intention, what Roger just said there, it wasn't actually our intention to open a test centre. The way that it actually started was we were training scientists. All we wanted to do at the beginning was to help our local community, help the businesses that we work with. And really, we just wanted to keep our staff employed and our labs paid for. Our business shut down, the same as so many other businesses during COVID. So in the first lockdown, it was really hard. And then we decided, you know what, we're training the scientists in the COVID labs. So we already have the expertise. We have the equipment in. So we started COVID testing our own students free of charge. And then we reached out to the organisations that we worked with. Now, they weren't all Northern institutions, like I've said. So we've got hundreds of partner institutions where we train scientists from. We offered them cost-price COVID tests, and we just explained that our scientists were volunteering to do it. So they were furloughed and they were allowed to volunteer, that we would allow them to, we would provide our labs free of charge, and that they would just cover the price of the reagents. And that's all it was. That's all it started off as. Now, within a few months, what happened was we had companies ringing us saying, my daughter, my son, my brother, my sister have just been tested by you. It was amazing. It was very professional. Now, these are not Northern-based companies. Like I've said, they are throughout the UK. Could you come and test my factory? I've got 4 factories. And I don't really know what happened, but by September, we were doing, well, I don't know, we've done around 200,000 tests to support not just local businesses, but UK-wide businesses. And then what happened was we decided that we would do really, really low price, government approved, we'd open the government approved testing facility for the local area. So we started in Liverpool. We were overrun within about 2 weeks. We were absolutely fully booked. Then we opened in Manchester, and then that fully booked. Then we opened in Shrewsbury. So one thing led to another. It wasn't from a commercialization point of view. It was from a desire to help people, and that has really earned us a lot of kudos, I think, with our collaborators. The next thing for us is we have so many people traveling from London because our test times are so quick that we are actually opening at the NEC and a number of London airports, and we are expanding throughout the area. Everything is still coming to Liverpool. for its analysis, but all of our clinics will expand throughout the UK. But off the back of that, what's been quite interesting is we already have a diagnostic service. We already work with a lot of pharmacies. Because the service that we've been able to offer has been consistent, and it has been, we're doing really quick turnarounds. We're doing 12 to 24 hours, guaranteed every time. We've actually got a lot more business off the back of that. So for us, COVID has led to our expansion. It wasn't a planned expansion. It was just a way of supporting local businesses. So it's for us, it's been a great success story, and a personal success story for me as well, because it's meant that we've kept a lot of schools open, and schools is a big priority for me as a mum. Not only do I want the teachers to be safe, but I think for a lot of working parents out there, and I think that's something that really needs to be discussed, is the gender difference that we're going to see post-COVID. And I would like to see something with regards, instead of waiting maybe for London to lead on this, maybe the North could lead on this. We're going to see a big gender inequality after COVID, because the vast majority of people that are losing their jobs are working mums. So for me, it was something that was critical for my business. We do a lot of outreach anyway. We do a lot of bursaries within the city. We always have done. But for us, the COVID work came as a result of some outreach work, and now we'll be expanding throughout the country, which is amazing.
Well, that is a fantastic story. I guess, Chris, you Abingdon have had a similarly almost transformational 12 months with growth and everything else with the lateral flow tests. What has kept you up, perhaps, for some of those nights? As I'm certain you've had some sleepless nights, as we've all had over the last few months. But also, what are you looking forward to next, I guess, with the next stage of growth?
Yeah, it's been a roller coaster 12 months, but I think the real positive for us as a business is being able to help, as Natalie said, and mitigate the impact of the pandemic. So we've been involved right back from March time in the development and then obviously manufacture of both antibody and antigen tests. So the antibody test that we developed was after being approached by Professor Sir John Bell, who's a life science advisor to the UK government, who asked us to develop an antibody test. And so, we dedicated a huge amount of the company over to doing that. It was two shifts a day, 7 days a week. I was bringing food into the guys, to the R&D guys. I couldn't have, but I could bring them food. We did a massive effort on that, but also we've worked with a number of international customers on developing their antigen tests as well. So over the course of the last 12 months, we've invested around 5 million in expanding our sites in York, and we bought the site in Doncaster and expanded it as well. And we took on, we were about 45 people actually in January of last year. We're now 200. So, and out of those 150 people that we've employed, pretty much half of those are graduates, and a majority of those graduates are life science graduates. And I think we're really proud to have been able to contribute to the local economies, in terms of bringing, people into our company. So it has been a challenging year. It's been a huge amount of work, 7 days a week for long periods. We've got really dedicated staff who have been really proud to kind of support those efforts. If I look forward, it's just about continuing that process now. So we raised money on the AIM market in December. We raised £22 million, and about 3/4 of that will be dedicated to continuing to expand both our York and Doncaster sites, and that's primarily around lateral flow manufacturing. So both of those sites are going to go undergo continued expansion, both in terms of space, equipment, and we also want to continue to grow the workforce this year. And that's really, for two reasons. Firstly, to support our customers in terms of lateral flow, manufacturing of tests with regard to COVID, but also, there is a larger lateral flow market out there covering a number of different areas, other clinical areas such as HIV testing, animal health, plant testing, and environmental testing. So as a business, we see opportunity in a broad range of sectors. Clearly, in the short term, a lot of the emphasis is on supporting our customers around COVID.
That's fantastic. I guess this leads me nicely then to you, Grant and Joe. Obviously, and a question that we've had from the audience, Joshua, that obviously COVID has created some massive changes to the way we all work. For instance, we are all sat here in our own respective offices and homes having this conversation, whereas this time last year it was in a room together and there was a bacon butty for me afterwards. But this transition to home working and things, do you think that this offers an opportunity for northern businesses and businesses perhaps not based here to expand and innovate here and therefore support the economy?
I'll take that first. I think it does, and I think what we've heard today is how quickly and flexibly businesses have responded to the pandemic, and that's across the board, across the portfolio. So that's been really sort of refreshing to see. I think what it proves is that businesses do continue to innovate. They're always looking for new opportunities, and you've heard two good examples of that today. But I think the thing that sort of, particularly in relation and being quite parochial here about the Northern Powerhouse Investment Fund, has how we've continued to support companies through the pandemic. We've continued to lend money. We've continued to make equity investments. And if anything, I think that challenge is going to become even greater as we come out of the pandemic. You know, if we've seen how much money's been put through the banks through bounce back loans and C-bills, whether the banks will have the appetite to continue making those sort of lending decisions remains to be seen. And classically, when you've had economic shocks, you've seen that institutional investors, pension funds, tend to be much more cautious about their investing in early stage tech. So if anything, I think what it does is it demonstrates the need for MPIF to have more money, to continue investing, to be that gap funder, filling the space where other people aren't going. The other thing which I just wanted to mention, and it may be heresy in today's meeting, is I don't think it's just about innovation in itself. As Roger said, it's about the commercialization of ideas. And what we have seen is that innovation helps increase the skills of the workforce, whether that's the new workforce that you're bringing on board or the existing workforce, because if you're bringing in new machinery, new equipment, new ways of doing things, you need to upskill your workforce. What we have seen is an increase in employment, and that's probably going to wobble over the next few months, but we have seen new jobs being created. And one of the things I'm really proud of is the quality of those jobs that are being created. So I think over a third of those jobs, new jobs that were created through MPIF portfolio companies, were in the upper quartile of UK earnings, including London and the South East. And to me, that indicates that the quality of jobs we are creating in the portfolio companies are good quality, highly skilled jobs. I think the other thing, and again, this is sort of quite a sensitive issue, is what we have seen is the businesses that we're supporting through MPIF who are innovating are much more likely to move into new markets and export. And that doesn't just mean doing business in the European Union, but doing business globally. And again, I think that's going to be key for the North as we rebuild the economy and look forward. So, and the final thing I just wanted to mention was, you know, MPIF's great, it is doing an important job. But when you look at the stats, what MPIF's doing is unlocking a lot of private money. So, you know, we've invested 237 million to date across the North. But I think equally important is that's unlocked 252 million of private money, whether that's from the banks, whether that's from angels, whether that's from other equity investors. And we need to do that. This can't be just about MPIF doing all the heavy lifting. Yes, we have an important role to play, but a part of our role is trying to get that money, whether it's from London and the South East or whether, as Natalie has said, it's from overseas. We need to bring more money into the North to fund our sort of growth aspirations.
Thanks, Grant. Joe, I guess a question that came in earlier, which I didn't bring up because I didn't want to lose the flow, but what is the one thing perhaps you would advise from day one when looking for investment? It's from an anonymous attendee, so I can't name check them, but
they're shy. I think the important thing is to try and get to the people that are going to be able to help you quickly. So use your networks around you. I think Chris mentioned it before, talk to your accountants, your professional advisors. They will help you cut through what is quite a complicated and sometimes regionally based funding stream for SMEs in particular. So if you can use that, then do. Also, there's some really good online tools now. The British Business Bank has got a growth hub that you can access, which will point you in the direction of funders in your region that provide funding of a particular type that you might be interested in. So things like debt finance, if you're a more established business and you can service debt repayments, great. But actually equity might be more applicable to you if you're pre-revenue or you wanted to grow very quickly and don't want to make those debt payments in the early days. So I think there are lots of tools out there, but I think I would encourage people, and certainly we always say this from our point of view in the Northern Powerhouse Investment Fund, and I'm sure that other colleagues and other fund managers would say the same. The best thing to do is pick up the phone and speak to one of us, because actually, you know, any one of us knows about the funds, and any one of us will be able to point you in the direction of the right person to help, because we do work together. We're a bit of a, you know, we try to work collegiately where we can as well, and depending on the postcode, or depending on depending on the kind of finance you want, we can quickly try and point you in the direction of somebody that can help, because it's really time consuming. And actually I feel so sorry for business owners who are trying to raise finance. It takes so much time, and time that really needs to be spent doing the day job as well. Sometimes some of the smaller companies, the most important people in the business that keep that business going are the people that are having to put everything into fundraising. And I don't know whether, you know, Chris and Natalie would probably be able to comment on that, but it must be an ordeal, and we try to make it as easy as possible, but it probably doesn't feel like that sometimes from a company perspective, and all you want to do is get on with your business plan. So yeah, I would encourage people to come and speak to somebody in the finance industry who should be able to point you in the direction and signpost.
Well, just for your confirmation, I did notice Chris and Natalie both nodding quite heavily at that point of yes, the people involved in the fundraising being taken away from their day jobs. I'm going to try and combine two questions into one here, so bear with me. But Mary says that she appreciated Roger's comment that innovation equals invention with commercialization. So if improvement is evolutionary and innovation is revolutionary, then what revolutionary action could or should the Northern Powerhouse take to further encourage startups and SMEs to become commercially successful innovators? And to add to that, an anonymous person said, could it be argued that the North is better positioned strategically for this new wave of innovative change because we have less Southern agendas burdening us? So it's sort of there is a whole heap of questions there. So does anyone want to take a stab at it first, then we'll go round?
Do you want me to start with it?
Yeah, go on, Roger.
Because it's got loaded politics in there. But they are good questions. I think, if I may just preface my remarks by saying, I think we understate the success, and you may say, well, you're biased, Roger, but of what MPIF's achieved. You know, let's not forget that when the spending review announcement took place in November, the Chancellor felt compelled to add another 25% to the fund. In circumstances, we all know what the fiscal position of the country is and what it's going to mean for not only us, but our kids, grandkids, and maybe their grandkids. But so it's obviously successful, and it's successful. It's almost against the odds. You know, 10 regions of the North collaborating with all of the different challenges and pooling these funds. So that's so I think to partly answer the question, the evolution is a scale up. Natalie picked up on NPIF 2, and a 400 million or now 500 million pound fund's all well and good, but let's make it 5 billion at the very least, and cover a wider range of things. I think where the revolution is, for me, is about our understanding and acceptance of risk. That we have this propensity in this country to say, we don't want any failure, so let's not do anything. And I don't mean that against colleagues on the call or people listening, but this notion that everything must be reasonably successful, otherwise it would better not. You know, the US take a different view. They said, look, fail, but fail fast, and then let's get on to the next thing. And I think that's the important thing. And I think the important thing is what we don't need, with great respect to policymakers, is another vision. What we need is enhanced execution. And I'm reminded of the words of Henry Ford, who I quite like this. He described vision without execution is just an hallucination. And I think that's what we need. And we need to enable businesses like Chris's and like Natalie's to take themselves not just nationally but internationally. And I think Brexit opportunity rather than the Brexit challenge, it needs that. I think the other thing as well is, and I think this is interesting when we've got probably one of the more centralised, controlled countries in the Western world, is actually to enhance the quality of trust. You know, we all want the same thing. We want a successful UK. We want living standards through the roof. We don't want fuel poverty. We don't want deprivation. We don't want people living in back-to-back houses that are cold in the winter and too hot in the summer. So let's trust. We all want the same thing. And actually, perversely, we're all taxpayers. So it is our money that we're wanting to see invest in the way. I think that's one of the biggest challenges where I think there needs to be a revolution in relation to this agenda in terms of the amount of public money that's matched with the private sector in the north for furthering our innovation capacity and thereby our ability to develop, as I said, globally significant businesses.
Fantastic. We'll do one very quick question, so please keep your answers very short and succinct. But what would the panel like to see in the form of further support moving forward to support innovation and keep this momentum that the North seems to have got through NPIF and everything else going into the post-COVID world?
Can I start on that one?
Yeah.
So I really liked Roger's points then about the mentality we have it in the lab. It's fail fast, fail cheap. If you're going to fail, just do it quick and don't waste too much money. And this idea around risk, and it's almost, you know, you can fail 100 times. You only have to be successful once. I think every business owner knows that. And I just think that post-COVID, we've got a lot of very successful businesses that have gone down, like really amazing entrepreneurs. We've got, like I've said already about gender diversity, we are going to have a lot of working parents that will have lost their businesses because they've got no childcare. What I would like to see as a revolutionary view is that actually, instead of, exactly like Roger's saying, instead of saying, well, you know what, you've been really successful through this COVID pandemic, you've made loads of money, so we're going to give you more money. I would like to see a diversification in the allocation of money to people that have failed, that have tried, have failed, have learned, and to actually see some of those businesses and those entrepreneurs actually be able to restart their businesses after COVID. For me, I think for a Northern Powerhouse, that we have to do that. We have to get businesses that have failed back into business after COVID.
Chris?
Yeah, just maybe a couple of points really. I think the first one is really kind of building what Roger and Natalie have said around, I think, the devolved funding. So actually, you know, allowing the funding decision making to be made at a local level. So, you know, funding, you know, NPIF, you know, in further, even things like maybe, devolving the funding from Innovate to local regional kind of bodies, or having specific regional Innovate funds. I think those things, are, you know, would be fantastic. The other point I'd make is just around the links between universities and industry. I think there is work to do there actually in building those links, because there's some great work being done, great research at universities, but it doesn't necessarily translate into commercial products or services. And I certainly, you know, I would certainly, you know, like to work with local universities to then have to go further afield. So I do think there's work to be done there collectively to make that happen.
Fantastic. Joe?
I think I just wanted to make a point on some of the government-backed schemes that have been sort of oiling the wheels at the moment. So things like CBILS that was mentioned before. It's really important that people know that fund is, first of all, the government-backed scheme is still available, but also it can support innovation. It's not just about supporting working capital for businesses that are struggling in COVID. It can actually be used for investment to help people to grow and repurpose to innovate. So it's really important that people know that and actually can come forward and access those funds. Some great support available for businesses through that. And we have supported about, I think it's nearly 100 companies and almost 30 million in the last 7 months in terms of CBILS loans alone through the Northern Powerhouse Investment Fund. So that's really good. And I think that others have said it, look, it's really important that business has the support from a financial point of view, but also from an expertise point of view in the longer term. So that support network, those advisors that can work with companies to help them develop and grow those networks and become global are really important. The gender point that Natalie raised before is something that that I think is a really important one. The agility of the workforce now, flexible working, I think there's an opportunity to open that up and allow some of that inequality to perhaps be dissipated in the longer term if businesses, can realise that actually some of the ways that we've been working because we've been forced to lately because of COVID could perhaps be things that could be rolled forward into the future. As a business, I think we've been more productive with people working at home. It's been amazing, and people have been juggling kids and homeschooling and all of the nightmares that everyone else has. And yet we've still managed to get a better result than we would have done had we been sat in the office together, which is bizarre, but true. So there are many companies that will probably think that as well. Let's learn from the things that we've seen in the last 10 months and take them forward for the future.
Fantastic. And lastly, Grant.
Thanks. A lot of what's already been said. Clearly, I match Roger's ambition, maybe not 5 billion, but certainly much more funding for MPIF, and also much more flexibility. This isn't a sort of anti-EU thing, but some of the rules that we had to deal with, have now gone. We've got an opportunity to do what's right for the North, and I'd certainly welcome those flexibilities to do more. And I think just picking up on Natalie's point, I think looking at gender is absolutely important. But the other thing I think for the North is to look at our Black and ethnic minority communities. There must be more that we can do, whether it's through MPIF, through the local enterprise partnerships, through combined authorities, to make sure we're being inclusive and that we don't leave anybody behind on our journey as we make a sort of entrepreneurial and innovative North.
If I could I come in, Ben? I think Natalie makes a really powerful point that there's, whilst we must be opportunistic but be realistic as well going forward, there is a massive uncalibrated as yet social societal challenge out there, whether it be young people, individuals on this call and beyond, that we perhaps have to think about. I don't know how others feel, but up to Christmas and immediately thereafter, there were some days that felt like Groundhog Day, but most days were pretty okay. I think now in a wet January, every day is sort of Groundhog Day. It's just the extreme of it, whether it's a 1 day or 100 day. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I think so, but I do think, and I do feel very passionate about this, and I know everybody on this call and those listening hopefully is the North is part of a national solution, and we need to keep making sure people understand that. We are definitely all in this together. And if I may just share some words that one of my former colleagues wrote in his Christmas card to me. 2021 should be about more resuming and less zooming, more fraternising and less sanitising, so vaccinations will allow more vacations. And I think on that note, hopefully we'll all have a nice summer.
Fantastic. No, thank you very much. And I think on that note, there's very little I can add. Ultimately, I feel this has shown that the North is in a good place, but it can be part of that solution and that recovery journey that we're all going to be on moving forward. So thank you very much to all the panelists, and thank you to everyone who's joined and watched this session. There will be a write-up of this appearing on the businessdesk.com in the coming, in a week. And there is a second session with Northern Powerhouse Investment Fund coming up in February. So thank you very much, and I hope you all have a fantastic day.